Hello, my name is Scott from Small Worlds Big Adventures. Today we're going to be starting a short series on what you can do with your 3D printer, and more specifically, things that I've done with my 3D printer. I am by no means an expert, but I have printed a wide range of stuff at this point. And definitely have some things I feel I can say on the subject. Uh, Today we'll be talking mostly about my top 5 Patreons for Warhammer 40k proxy models is one way to put them. A lot of people call them grim dark models. Uh, there's a few things you can discuss with them. We'll just kind of count down my top 5. I have been at one point or another over the past few years a member of a few different Patreons that do models in this vein, but these are the ones that I'm currently or have stood the test of time that I go back to and get once in a while. Patreon is a site that creators can use to put their works up or give fans of their stuff a place to essentially give them money to maybe get some behind the scenes stuff or special art that isn't offered other places. Sometimes it can be communication with the artist or access to their Discord. In our case today, the artists that we do create 3D models, and you can get the STLs that you use to print from the Patreon sites. Most of them will do a monthly set of models that you can download for usually around $10. It's going to be different depending on which Patreon you follow. There are some that are cheaper, there are some that are more expensive, but it's a good way to get really cheap stuff. If you go to my Mini Factory is a paid site that I go to get models once in a while, and go to get an individual model, they can be as much as 10, 20, or even $30. Whereas if you get the set on Patreon, you can get the whole set for $10. A reason why you might do this, especially if you have a printer, although it might be a reason why you end up purchasing a printer. I looked up just today an example. If you go to Games Workshop and you look for Imperial Guard shock troops, for a squad of 10 men, it'll cost you $50. Now, that'll be a sprue with all the plastic stuff on it, but you'll put them together yourself, you'll glue them, you'll paint them. But $50 for 10 men. The number one site that I will be talking about today for $10 will get you the STLs, so the files to print them. You'll get 20 plus figures and 2 tanks. And that's not including, there's also a bonus thing on top of that is about doubles that. It's just not for Games Workshop, or it's not for 40k stuff. So for $10, you get the files to print out more than double what the $50 is. In resin, you're maybe $10 worth of resin. The tanks are going to be a little bit more if you print them with resin. So let's say you run a whole bottle, you can get a bottle of resin for somewhere between $20 and $30. So for the same price as 10 guys, you can print out and get the files for a whole couple of squads and a couple of tanks. Now that doesn't, of course, include the cost of a printer, which have come down in the last few years. You can pretty easily get a decent printer for somewhere between $100 and $300. But if you spread that over the entire cost of an entire 2,000 point army from Games Workshop, you would find yourself saving a lot of money. Starting at number 5 is Puppets War Miniatures. Now, Puppets War Miniatures mostly makes Marines, Orcs, and Tyrannid style models. They start at $10 for the Knight membership, which should get you pretty much everything, including a welcome pack, a discount on their shop, and all the models for the month. I do like these guys. The look of the models tend to feel husky compared to a lot of other models, which isn't so bad for the Space Marines. Marines tend to be kind of really kind of thick, solid models to begin with, but their sculpts tend to be a little huskier than I'm used to, but really good models. I like the orcs and the style that they create them are some really fun things. They have some orcs that have jetpacks and some helmets that make them look like they come from different sci-fi worlds, such as Star Wars and some other things, which is kind of fun. One of the downsides for Puppets War is their sets for a month tend to be a little bit on the small side compared to the other ones on this list. Still a good amount for the money you're getting, especially when you compare it to buying physical models from GW. But depending on the month, might only be somewhere between 10 and 15 figures. They're modular. Most of the Patreons on this list will have modular figures, which is definitely something that I'm looking for when I'm putting this together. I won't mention that for for everyone, mainly because again, the lists that I have, most of them will be modular, so you can swap out weapons and hands and heads and stuff like that. So you can, even though it's only 5 guys, you can make them look pretty different and increase the amount of models that you're putting out. But honestly, for the price you're getting some really nice stylistic models from Puppets War, and I definitely endorse. Coming in at number 4 on my list, and I'm not honestly sure how to pronounce this, but it's something like Gamak. I've followed this guy for quite some time. He does, or they do, both sci-fi and fantasy tier. So you could get models from here that work both for 40k or for Warhammer Fantasy, or as I've used for Dungeons and Dragons or any type of fantasy stuff, tabletop role playing that you may or may not do, which kind of increases the value add to checking out their site. They have a wide range in their catalog. All of these will have back catalogs on. You can find them some different places. My Mini Factory is usually a good place to find the stuff, or at least that's where I go. And they have a wide range of armies and sets that they have put out over the last few years. If you want price, you can get the $10 sci-fi set, or for $18, you can get both sets in a month. So you get kind of a little rebate there if you really do want both the fantasy and the sci-fi. Some of their sets are really fun themes. Some of them are pretty standard. Their Marines, their Necron style stuff tend to be kind of on par with pretty much everybody's. But they put out a set of Imperial Guard that were kind of these winter themed figures. They put out a set of Sisters of Battle that were kind of, to me, it seemed like a sort of a Russian Stalingrad kind of theme, and some really fun stuff in there. Really solid models, really good sculpts, and I like them. Again, really would endorse them. Coming in at number 3 is the Maker's Cult. I find myself regularly checking on these guys. Maker's Cult is $12.50, so just a little bit on the pricey side for their Patreon, but not excessively so. Their collection is mostly guard units with some kind of odds and ends thrown in. But to that end, they do a lot of tanks and mechs, which I really like. The January. They really solid models, really good sculpts. Their tanks are honestly really top notch. They often include a lot of little bits and things so you can customize them in a wide range of options. One of my favorite things about these guys is they occasionally put out a set that are essentially cyborg Tyranids, which makes a really kind of cool, different army on the tabletop than what a normal Tyranid army looks like. In at number 2, and really one of my favorite Patreons, is Station Forge. Station Forge also mostly specializes in Imperial Guard. They also put out other stuff. They've got a good range of orc models, and they've recently started doing Tyranid models, which are really nice. They've got a really good mix of different types of Imperial Guard as well. I think there's something like 3 or 4 sets. They also have some, they're tech cult guys, but a really wide range of stuff. Also, Station Forge puts out a large amount of STLs and models in a month. It's a really good bang for your buck if you're looking to stretch your $10. Station Forge is a great Patreon, but you kind of can't go wrong with them as far as the amount of stuff you're getting. They get some fun seasonal stuff too. You can get some bigger models, some tanks, and some really weird, fun things in there. Honestly, their models are really sharp, well done. All of these Patreons come with pre-supported options, and I've been really happy with their pre-supported stuff. All 5 of these, and honestly, most of the Patreons that I have at least regularly check in on will do pre-supported sculpts so that you don't have to do any of that work yourself. You can just load up into your slicer and then basically start printing. Unfortunately, sometimes, especially depending on your printing specifications, the pre-supports may not work, or you might have problems, and then you'll have to support them yourself, which, if you've done that, can be kind of a nightmare, kind of annoying. Station Forge has some really great ones, but honestly, all 5 of these Patreons, for the most part, I've had very few issues with their pre-supported models. Definitely something I would endorse. And my number 1, for a few reasons, is OnePage Rules. OnePage Rules is hands down my favorite for grim dark models for a few reasons. One, every month they print 2 sets, not a full army, but 2 sets of stuff. They do both a grimdark and a fantasy, which can again be used as both either 40k or Warhammer Fantasy stuff. Unlike the Gamuk one, for $10 you get both sets, which is great. They also have kind of their own style, and that's something that we're seeing more and more of. If you follow Patreon's, Games Workshop has been kind of cracking down on independent artists, it seems. So you kind of need to have a style that's a bit different than the GW stuff, and OnePage Rules really kind of regularly does some really fun sets that are still noticeably what they are for as a proxy, but still got their own style. One of the things OnePage Rules does, and I'm not sure if they were this before or not, the OnePage Rules actually means a game system. They write rules for a tabletop war games that are similar-ish to Games Workshop, but all the rules, at least originally, could be set out in one page. And they do a fantasy version. They do a grim dark future version. They have I believe they have a small spaceships version. And honestly, I've played these, and I like, at least for the 40k version, I prefer that over Warhammer 40k for a number of reasons. It plays faster. It's a little more fair. It's simpler. Some people might not like the simplicity of it, and I get that. But for me, that tends to work in its favor, in my opinion. And when you join their site, you get access to all of their rules, which I think you can get even if you're not a member of their site. But they give you some extras, bells and whistles, if you're a member. So all of the stuff that they're making go into the army builders stuff for the games that they have, which is pretty great. So when I'm printing my stuff up, it's mostly I'm a gamekeeper, so a lot of times it's stuff for the games that I'm running for Dungeons and Dragons or for Call of Cthulhu or what have you. But occasionally I play. It's usually the OnePage Rules games, tabletop war games. Although we've tried a few different ones over the last couple of years. So if I'm printing out these kind of 40k style minis, I'm doing that. But I'm just playing in my game room. I follow a few different Reddit forums, and it is really clear that some places will allow you to bring a proxy army that is all printed out figures, and some game stores will not. If you want to play in a tournament, especially if it is a Games Workshop authorized tournament, you almost certainly can't bring a full army. And my understanding is for the rules now, you can't bring much that was printed. You could do some bits and stuff on the base and some flair, but the figures themselves almost certainly have to be Games Workshop stuff. You have to check with your local mom and pop game store if they would allow proxy armies in the leagues that they run. Leagues aren't usually a GW thing. That's usually a game store thing, but the game stores still want to sell you figures because that's how they make money. And if you're not buying anything from them, then they might not allow, not on a case-by-case basis, but they might just have a policy of we don't allow it because it means money's not coming into the store. Most of the people that I know that do run proxy armies try to make sure that they buy a set of dice or stuff from the store each time they're in when they play in either a league or a tournament. Usually if you're playing one-on-one as just a friendly thing, it doesn't tend to be a problem. That's always going to come down to basically who your opponent is. But even then, sometimes stores just simply won't allow you to bring your armies in and play them. So buyer beware on that. It's unfortunate. One of the reasons I got out of playing Warhammer 40,000 was the price, and that was over a decade ago. And now looking at the price, the sticker shock just astounds me. Hard to believe anybody actually gets into this hobby anymore. Looking at the prices of the models, and once you get comfortable printing, man, the difference in price there is massive. Especially when you're talking about things like tanks and stuff. But again, $50 for a set of 10 shock troops, it just astounds me. That was, I think, back when I started playing, $15. It would be really fun if you liked and subscribed, hit the notification bell. If you have any questions, ask me down below. I'd be happy to answer anything 3D printing related. If there is nothing else, see you next time.